Buonasera, benvenuti a Roma. Welcome in Rome. This is Susanna, official licensed tour guide for Rome and its province, which implies that I can serve my guests in the city and the areas that fall under its administrative head. Today I have the honor and pleasure to serve for you a mini virtual guided tour in place of a real one which was meant for this event before the COVID emergency situation. I truly hope that this bite of the Eternal City will grow in you an appetite to come back and experience more in a desirable next future when we all shall go back to health and safety. So thank you very much. Join me in this virtual stroll through space and time, and arrivederci. Some figures may help to understand the grandiosity of the site. The outer walls bordering the baths would measure above 300 meters, 900 feet per side. Everything would develop on 3 increasing terraces built upon 2 different levels. 18 cisterns would feed water to the site by means of lead pipes, and above 250 columns would spread out all over, 16 of which were higher than 12 meters, 36 feet. The historians have estimated 9,000 workers employed every day for 5 years to carry out this visionary work. And the number includes the diggers in the quarry, the transporters, the craftsmen, the decorators, etc. All of this would make the delight of about 6,000 to 8,000 bathing people per day. The Caracalla Baths stand out as a glorious example of architecture patronized during the ancient Roman imperial age. The intimidating scale and the splurge of splendor were a boast of power on behalf of the emperor. They were the greatest bath site until the next one, patronized by Diocletian the emperor at the end of the 3rd century after Christ. The site was spread on a system of terraces. At the top of the highest one was a parade of 18 cisterns to provide running water constantly to the baths. It was fed by an aqueduct that was purposely restored by Caracalla the emperor. The plan of the baths was regular and symmetrical. There was no compulsory way to take. The environments that we're looking at were the ones mostly exposed to the sun, facing southwest. The very central room, extremely large and covered by a gigantic dome, was the Calidarium. That is the place where the people could access the hot waters. Siding this major set were the Laconica, which used to be a sort of sauna rooms. These typologies of architectures were all provided with the heating system that ran through pipes and windows in order to let the light come in and prevent the dispersion of the heat. At the very back of the central Calidarium was the Tepidarium, which had a milder temperature of the waters, and enclosing the Frigidarium, the extremely large environment, which was covered in marble, and therefore it was a walking site, sided by pools with cold water. We are now at the feet of such imposing walls. Nowadays we only see the color of the brick facade, which was heavily stripped of the outer layer of beauty and color over the centuries, but it definitely still preserves all the impacting feeling. And now we can finally dive in the very first scenario. As we make our way through the arched doorway, the space broadens up around us, and we find ourselves in one of the 2 specular enormous gymnastic places. The Romans would warm up and sweat before the actual bathing. The pavement was covered in mosaic. In this specific section, a gorgeous shield motif that has become a sort of logo for the Caracalla baths shows different types of precious marble that were purposely selected in separate corners of the Mediterranean in order to get access to the best quality of each. The dark hue of red porphyr came from Egypt, white and green from Greece, and the yellow from the area of Tunisia. Above this colorful pattern ran a higher one in white and black tiles. As you can see, there is a fragment up there on the right of the upper pavement that collapsed over time. Opposite from us, all the way down again on the right, we see another segment of this walkable corridor that would run all along the walls of this immense space. This upper level was in use for additional services for the Romans that could afford them, such as a massage or a wax. And now moving on to the right, we'll make our way through the other arch. Just above the arch, we see the multi-layers that would cover the walls, remaining parts of plaster encapsulating fragments of white marble. And down on the right, additional portions of the white and black tiled collapsed pavement of the gymnastic place. We finally make our way through the arch and end up in the most grand of all the spaces in the Caracalla baths. This was called Frigidarium. It was the setting sided by pools with cold water. As we look left and right, we can appreciate the striking proportions of every architectural detail. The pillars would measure up to 30 meters, 90 feet at the highest peak. We see the imposing arches and the thickness of the walls. As we look at the very background, we see the facade of the final parts of the baths. We will talk about this later on. The outstanding ornamental layout is definitely worth of mention. Lenticular details, marble friezes running on the walls, a geometrical pattern of precious typologies of marble from any corner of the empire, fine and colorful mosaic layout floors. Last but not least, a multitude of columns in gray, pink granite and marble, 16 of which would be in the range of 12 meters high, 36 feet. Coming out of the Frigidarium, we will cross the second Oriental gymnastic place, again with a gorgeous colorful pattern on the pavement, to follow one of the two specular spaces for ordinary practical purposes, but yet with an indisputable artistic appeal to us nowadays. In this environment, given with a different layout in black and white at each corner, we would find the apoditeria, which were literally the changing rooms. So fascinating to learn that the ancient Romans would have our same ordinary needs and habits. The ridges on the wall on the right prove there used to be a staircase leading upstairs for accessory needs. The person would get the benefit of a massage, a wax, or some extra treatment. In closing, we come to one of the most impacting spaces of the baths. As we make our way into this final section, we see additional portions of remaining mosaic tiles on the pavement. Look at this beautiful green, serpentino, snaky green as we call it nowadays. And over to the right, we see a beautiful geometrical pattern in colorful marbles. Once more, the massive walls prove how thick the architectures could be, but we only see the sepia color of this immense facade that used to be covered in a layer of beautiful marbles and running water. This used to be the natatio, the pool that would freshen up the bathing people. We're virtually coming down a number of steps that would take us into this pleasant corner of the baths. Not a deep pool, as you can see, but one just to relax. The arches have overlooks on the imposing frigidarium and all the structures that we commented before. And as we take a look around once more, we are hit by the stunning beauty of the place despite the lack of color and the striking scale of everything. Even in this case, picture a facade in full color divided by columns ornated by statues with water jets coming out at the bottom. This would have been the splendor of the big facade of the Natatio. This huge hyperfunctional machinery was kept ongoing thanks to a parallel hidden microcosm spreading at a deeper level. This underground world was crossed by a systematic path of wide corridors, carriageable in two ways, where the continuous cargo of wood, clean and dirty laundry, and anything needed was coming and going. The fire was constantly lit in the many prefurnia, large ovens meant to spread the heat in the underground corridors that would heat up the pavement, walls, and water pools on the higher level. The underground level is also given with another invaluable finding, a series of rooms in use for the worship of the god Mitra. The blood shed by the sacrifice of the bow was poured on the members initiated to the ritual. This large room houses the only case found in Rome of the hall for the initiation. Let me introduce you to the landlord, Emperor Marco Aurelio Antonio Bassiano, also known as Caracalla. These baths were in use for 3 centuries, starting from 216 AD. In 537 AD, the Goth invaders attacking Rome broke the aqueducts. They could see clearly that cutting the supply of water short was a direct way to undermine the strength of the Eternal City. Over the centuries, the site went through a number of uses and abuses, becoming a graveyard, a quarry for building materials, later a vineyard. In the 1500s, Pope Paul III Farnese gave way to a systematic campaign of diggings, leading to a massive spoilage of building materials, marble basins, and statues. Unvaluable works of art were dug out on the ground at that time, such as the statue of the so-called Toro Farnese and the Colosso Hercules. By means of family ties and reasons, those masterpieces were moved down to Naples and are now on display in the National Archaeological Museum. The busy instead here in picture has been turned into a fountain in a beautiful Roman square. And now, in closing, I would love to make this place come to life by narrating to you some quotations from a letter written by a man that lived in the 1st century after Christ, very close to thermal baths. His name was Seneca. You may have heard of him, a very world-renowned writer, philosopher, and politician. And he was complaining with his friend about all the noises, very annoying, that came to him from any side. And here, all sorts of noises come to me from any side. I live right above the public bath. Now picture every type of sound that can be molest to our ears. When the most robust men are exercising and agitating their hands, full of lead balls, or they're making efforts, or they're pretending they are. I hear their sighs every time that they breathe out or hold it in, and the sibyls and the very unpleasant breathing. When some lazy man is very self-pleased as he's being ointed in the most common way, he's getting a massage, or hear the noise of the hand patting on his shoulders. It is different according to when the hand is open or closed. And then, once the player of the ball is starting to count the scores, that's the end. And now, in addition to this, someone that is coming into a fight, or a thief caught in action, and the one that is very self-pleased to hear his own voice as he's taking a bath. On top of this, the ones that are jumping up and down in the baths, making a big splash with the water. And besides them, the voices with different tones of the epilator that is coming out continuously with an acute, thin voice. Because he wants to make it heard, and he's only shutting his mouth once he's tearing off the armpit hair of someone else and he's making him scream. Think about the diversity of the yelling of the vendors of the drinks, the one of the sausages or the pastries, and all the people of the craft shops that are trying to catch the attention. All of these noises, together with any typology of Roman citizen, gathered in these places because these were the public baths, the baths of the people, despite the fact that they were so grand and so glorious in terms of decorative effort. This is a beautiful example of ancient Rome during the Imperial Age, when everything was so visionary and so accessible by anyone, whatever the social position within this pyramid, on top of which was the emperor, the one that would finance such eternal places. It's been a pleasure to take a stroll through time and space with you, and I truly wish you to keep safe and hopefully to share all of this together and much more in the very next future, when the world should be safe and healthy. Grazie mille. Thank you very much. Arrivederci.